The scavenger ship Hollow Drift came out of warp above a gray, quiet planet. Its hull was covered in rust and old scars from 100 salvage jobs. Inside the cockpit, 3 aliens sat at their stations, watching the world grow larger on the screen. Captain Case Vorn was a Threll, a species with long limbs, gray skin, and eyes that shone faintly blue in the dark. He leaned forward and studied the planet below. It was mostly brown and green, with wide oceans and thick clouds. Nothing about it looked dangerous. It looked dead. "This is it," Kaye said. "Old Earth, the lost human world." His science officer, Dessa Naines, tapped at her console. She was a Vashtak, short and quick, with skin like pale stone, and large black eyes made for seeing in the dark. "Scanners show no active power signals," she said. "No ships, no signals, no movement. This place has been empty for a long time." "How long?" Case asked. "Hard to say. Centuries at least. Maybe longer." Case nodded slowly. He had heard the stories about humans since he was young. Every species in the galaxy had heard them. Humans were supposed to be a violent, unpredictable race that fought wars against everyone, including each other. Some old traders said humans vanished overnight, leaving their cities standing empty, like a mystery no one ever solved. Other traders said the humans died out from a plague they made themselves. Nobody really knew the truth. All anyone knew for sure was that human worlds were rich with old technology, and old technology was worth a lot of money. "Bram, take us down," Case said to his engineer. Bram Oth was an Andrai, a heavy-built alien with thick gray plates on his skin and slow, careful movements. He guided the ship down through the clouds. As they got closer, the crew began to see shapes on the ground. Long, straight roads, square buildings, towers that reached high into the sky, some broken, some still standing tall and proud. "There," Dessa said, pointing at the screen. "A city." It was massive. It stretched out for kilometers in every direction, filled with buildings taller than anything the crew had ever built themselves. Rows of towers stood like silent giants, their windows dark and empty. Roads ran between them, covered in dust and dead leaves. Nothing moved. No lights. No sound. Just wind, blowing quietly through empty streets. "This is bigger than any city we've ever scavenged," Bram said, his voice full of wonder. Case felt something between excitement and unease. In his years of scavenging dead worlds, he had never seen a city this large, still standing after so much time. Most abandoned places on other planets had collapsed long ago, turned to rubble by weather and time. But this city looked almost as if the humans had just left yesterday. "Take us to the center," Case ordered. "Land near the tallest tower." The ship descended slowly, engines humming, and touched down on a wide, empty street between 2 rows of buildings. Dust rose around the landing pads, then settled again. Silence returned. Case stood and checked his suit. "Suit up. We go out in 10 minutes." The crew of the Hollow Drift was small, only 5 members, but each of them had years of experience finding value in dead places. Besides Case, Dessa, and Bram, there was Rel Kos, the security officer, a tall and quiet Threll who rarely spoke but always kept his weapon close. And there was Toma Vey, the youngest of the group, barely out of training, who worked as the ship's cargo handler and general helper. Toma was nervous. He had never been on a job this big before. As he pulled on his suit, his hands shook slightly. "You scared?" Rel asked him, noticing. "No," Toma said quickly. Then he paused. "Maybe a little." Rel almost smiled. "Good. Scared keeps you alive. Just don't let it stop you from moving." The airlock opened, and the 5 of them stepped out onto the street. The air outside was breathable, thin but clean, filtered through their suits just to be safe. The first thing Toma noticed was how quiet it was. No wind, no animals, no hum of machines. Just his own breathing inside his helmet. "Spread out a little, but stay in sight of each other," Case said. "Dessa, start scanning. Bram, look for anything with working circuits. Rel, keep watch. Toma, stay close to me." They began walking down the street. The buildings around them were made of a strange gray material, tougher than stone but lighter than metal. Windows, some cracked, some perfectly intact, reflected the pale sunlight. Vines and plants had grown up along some walls, but strangely, not as much as the crew expected. In most dead cities the crew had visited before, nature had swallowed everything within a few hundred years. Here, the plants seemed to have grown only a little, as if something had kept them from spreading too far. "This place is strange," Dessa muttered, looking at her scanner. "The growth patterns don't match the estimated age of the ruins." "What do you mean?" Case asked. "I mean this city looks like it's been empty for centuries, based on the dust and decay. But the plant growth outside looks like it's only been a few decades. It doesn't match." Case frowned but said nothing. He had learned a long time ago that abandoned worlds often had strange, unexplainable details. It was better to keep moving and stay alert than to spend hours wondering why. They reached a large open plaza in the center of the city. In the middle stood a huge fountain, dry and cracked, with a statue at its center. The statue showed a human figure, tall and proud, standing with one arm raised toward the sky. Time had worn away some of the details, but the shape was still clear. Toma stared up at it. "Is that what a human looked like?" "That's the shape they always describe," Dessa said. "Two arms, two legs, one head. Simple design compared to us, but effective, apparently." "They don't look very strong," Toma said. "Looks can be misleading," Rel said quietly, still scanning the rooftops around them with his eyes. They continued through the plaza, past more statues and old benches, toward the base of the tallest tower in the city. Up close, the tower was even more impressive. Its walls stretched up so high that the top disappeared into the clouds. Large doors stood at its base, sealed shut, with strange symbols carved into the metal. "Bram, can you get these doors open?" Case asked. Bram walked up to the doors and ran his scanner over them. "There's still power in here, very low, almost nothing, but it's there. Some kind of backup system, maybe." "After all this time?" Dessa asked, surprised. "Human engineering," Bram said, shrugging. "Whatever they built it to last." He worked for a few minutes, connecting tools to a panel beside the door. Sparks flickered, and slowly, with a deep groaning sound, the massive doors began to slide open. Dust poured out from the gap, and a rush of stale, old air escaped into the street. Inside was a massive hall, dark and quiet. The group turned on their suit lights, and beams of light cut through the darkness, revealing rows of old furniture, covered in dust, and long hallways stretching off in different directions. In the center of the hall stood another statue, this one different. It showed several human figures together, as if in the middle of some ceremony or celebration. "This must have been important," Case said, walking further in. "A government building, maybe, or something religious." "Look at this," Dessa called from nearby. She was standing beside a wall, covered in strange markings, symbols and pictures that told some kind of story. "This looks like a record of something, a history maybe." Toma walked closer to study the images. He saw pictures of humans building the city, planting trees, raising children. Then, further along the wall, the pictures changed. They showed humans looking up at the sky, some with fear on their faces, others with determination. The final image showed the entire population walking away from the city, toward ships in the distance, leaving everything behind. "They left on purpose," Toma said slowly. "They didn't die here, they left." Kaya stepped closer, studying the final image carefully. Why would they leave a city like this behind? All this technology, all this work, just abandoned. "Maybe they had no choice," Rel said. "Or maybe," Dessa said, her voice thoughtful, "they were planning to come back." The words hung in the air for a moment, and a strange chill passed through the group, even though the temperature inside their suits hadn't changed at all. Case shook his head, trying to push away the odd feeling. "Doesn't matter. If they were coming back, they would have come back by now. It's been long enough. This place is a scavenger's dream. Let's get to work." The crew spread out through the massive hall, searching for valuable technology. Bram found old machines built into the walls, still mostly intact despite the years. Dessa collected data from strange devices that looked like ancient computers, hoping to find useful information stored inside. Rel kept watch near the entrance, his weapon ready, though there was nothing to shoot at except silence and shadows. Toma wandered a little further than the others, drawn by curiosity toward a smaller room off the main hall. Inside, he found rows of what looked like old desks, and on the walls, faded pictures of human children smiling at the camera. It looked like it might have been some kind of school. He picked up a small object from one of the desks, a strange little toy shaped like a human figure, worn down by time but still recognizable. He turned it over in his hands, feeling an odd sadness he didn't understand. Whatever had happened to the humans, they had clearly loved this place. They had built homes and schools and raised children here. It didn't feel like the empty ruin of some savage, violent species. It felt like a home that had simply been left behind. "Toma," Caius's voice came through his helmet radio. "Come back to the main hall. We're heading deeper into the tower." "Coming," Toma said, slipping the small toy into a pocket of his suit. He walked back through the hallway, his light casting long shadows on the walls, and joined the rest of the crew near a large elevator shaft at the back of the hall. The elevator itself was long dead, its doors stuck halfway open, but beside it, a stairwell led both up and down into darkness. "Up or down?" Bram asked. Case thought for a moment, looking at both directions. "Down. If there's a power source keeping this place from collapsing, it's probably below, not above." They began to descend, one by one, into the darkness beneath the tower. The stairs were long, spiraling downward far deeper than any of them expected. As they walked, the air grew colder, and a low humming sound began to reach their ears, faint at first, but growing steadily stronger with every step. "Do you hear that?" Dessa asked, her voice tight. "I hear it," Rel said, gripping his weapon a little tighter. The humming continued as they reached the bottom of the stairs, opening out into a massive underground chamber filled with rows of strange machines, all dark and silent, except for one thing. Deep in the center of the chamber, a single light blinked steadily, slow and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Case stared at the light for a long moment, feeling the same chill from before return, stronger this time. Whatever this place was, it wasn't as dead as it seemed. "Bram," he said quietly, "what is that?" Bram walked closer, scanning the machine connected to the blinking light, his face, usually calm, twisted into a look of confusion and worry. "Captain," he said slowly, I think this whole city is still running. It's just been asleep." No one spoke for a moment. The humming continued, low and steady, filling the silence of the underground chamber like the breathing of some enormous, sleeping creature. "Asleep," Case repeated. "For how long?" Bram checked his readings again, his hands trembling slightly. "I don't know. But Captain, I think something just noticed we're here." As if in answer to his words, far above them, deep within the tower, a single light flickered on, in one of the highest windows, shining out into the darkening sky, like the first eye of the city, slowly opening. The single light in the tower window stayed on, glowing softly against the darkening sky. Nobody in the underground chamber saw it happen, but Rel, still watching the stairs above, caught a strange change in the air, a faint vibration, like something far away had just taken a breath. "Captain," Rel said, "something changed. I can feel it." Case turned from the blinking machine, his mind still trying to understand what Bram had told him. A whole city, asleep, not dead. It didn't make sense. Dead worlds didn't hum quietly to themselves for centuries, waiting. "Bram, can you tell what this machine controls?" Case asked. Bram ran his tools over the surface of the device, careful not to touch anything that looked important. "It's some kind of core system, maybe the heart of the whole city's power grid. It's running on almost nothing, just enough to keep itself alive, like a candle that refuses to go out." "Can you shut it down?" Case asked. Bram hesitated. "I could try. But Captain, if this thing is what's kept the whole city standing all this time, shutting it down might cause problems. Or it might do nothing. I don't know enough about human technology to say for sure." Dessa walked closer, examining the strange symbols carved into the side of the machine. "There's writing here. I can't read the language, but I've seen a few examples of human text before, from old trade records. Give me a minute." She pulled out a small device from her belt and pointed it at the symbols, letting it scan and try to translate. After a moment, broken words appeared on her screen. "Guardian Core, do not disturb." She read slowly. Something about a guardian. "A guardian?" Toma asked, his voice nervous. "Guardian of what?" Nobody answered him. The humming in the room grew slightly louder, and a faint pulse of light traveled along thin lines in the floor, spreading outward from the machine, like veins carrying blood through a body. "I don't like this," Rel said. "Captain, I think we should leave." Case looked around the chamber one more time, torn between caution and curiosity. Years of scavenging had taught him to respect old technology, especially ones built by species known for being unpredictable. But leaving now, without answers, felt wrong too. This was the biggest discovery of his career. If they left empty-handed because of nerves, some other scavenger crew would come along and take everything. "We're not leaving yet," Case said finally. "But we're being careful. Bram, don't touch anything else on that machine. Dessa, keep scanning. See if you can learn more about what this place actually is. Rel, watch the stairs. Toma, stay close." They spent the next hour exploring the underground chamber carefully. It turned out to be much larger than they first thought, stretching far beyond the edges of their suit lights. Rows of machines lined the walls, most of them dark and silent, connected by thick cables that ran along the floor and up into the ceiling, disappearing into the tower above. Dessa found a section of the wall covered in more of the strange symbol writing, along with pictures that seemed to explain what the place was for. "I think I understand now," she said, calling the others over. "This isn't just a power source. Look at these pictures. It looks like this chamber connects to the whole city. Every building, every street, every light. It's all controlled from here." "Like a brain," Toma said. "Exactly like a brain," Dessa agreed. "And it's not dead. It's sleeping. Waiting." "Waiting for what?" Case asked. Dessa studied the pictures more closely, her scanner working slowly to translate the ancient words beside them. "For the humans to come back," she said finally. "This whole city was built to protect itself and wait, keeping everything safe until its people returned." The chamber suddenly felt colder, even through their suits. Toma glanced nervously at the ceiling, half expecting to see something moving in the shadows above them. "That still doesn't explain why the humans left," Case said, "or where they went." Dessa shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe there's more information somewhere else in the city, a record, or an archive." "Then we keep looking," Case decided. "Bram, mark this location. We might need to come back to it. For now, let's search the rest of the tower. Carefully." They left the underground chamber, climbing back up the long stairwell into the main hall above. As they walked, Toma couldn't shake the feeling that something was different now. The dust in the air seemed to move slightly, as if disturbed by a breeze that shouldn't exist in a sealed building. The shadows along the walls seemed darker, deeper somehow, though nothing had actually changed. "Is it just me?" Toma whispered to Rel. "Or does this place feel more awake now?" Rel glanced around slowly. "It's not just you." They reached the main hall and continued deeper into the tower, following long hallways lined with closed doors. Most of the doors were sealed shut, either locked by old mechanisms or simply too rusted to move. Bram managed to force a few open using his tools, revealing rooms filled with old furniture, strange devices, and personal belongings left behind by whoever had once lived or worked there. In one room, they found rows of small beds, along with toys and children's drawings pinned to the walls. It looked like it had once been a place where young humans stayed, perhaps while their parents worked. Toma stared at the drawings for a long moment, feeling that same strange sadness from before. The pictures showed simple things: sons, houses, families holding hands. Nothing that suggested a violent or savage species. Just normal lives, lived by normal people, before everything stopped. "This doesn't feel like an abandoned city," Toma said quietly. "It feels like everyone just stepped out for a moment." "They didn't step out," Dessa said, studying more symbols near the door. "According to this section was sealed on purpose, as part of some kind of evacuation plan. Everyone left the same day, following an organized process. This wasn't panic. This was planned. Planned evacuation of an entire city," Case repeated slowly. "That takes serious organization, serious leadership. That doesn't match the stories we've heard about humans." "Maybe the stories were wrong," Dessa said. Case didn't answer. He had scavenged dozens of dead worlds in his career, and in every single one, the stories the crew had heard beforehand rarely matched what they found. Sometimes the dead world was worse than expected, filled with traps or dangerous leftover weapons. Sometimes it was better, filled with treasures nobody expected to survive the years. But this place, this quiet, humming, watching city, felt different from anything he had experienced before. They continued their search, moving up through the tower floor by floor. On the 15th floor, they found what looked like a control room, filled with large screens and control panels, all dark and silent. Bram worked quickly, connecting his tools to try and restore some power to the systems. After several minutes of careful work, one of the screens flickered weakly to life, showing static and broken images. "I've got something," Bram said, excitement in his voice, despite the tension in the room. The screen slowly stabilized, showing a simple image, a map of the city, with different sections marked in different colors. Most of the map was dark, but a few sections glowed faintly, including the one they were currently standing in. "This must be some kind of city management system," Dessa said, studying the screen. "It looks like it's showing which parts of the city still have power." "Can you access more information?" Case asked. Bram tried several commands, but the system responded slowly, clearly weakened by centuries of disuse. After a few minutes, another image appeared, a simple message, written in human text, which Dessa's scanner slowly translated. "System status, dormant, awaiting authorization, unauthorized access detected." The room went completely silent. "Unauthorized access detected," Toma repeated nervously. "That's us. It knows we're here." "It's just a machine," Kaz said, trying to sound calmer than he felt. "An automated response. It doesn't mean anything is coming." As if to argue with him, the map on the screen suddenly changed. More sections began to glow, one by one, spreading outward from their location like ripples in water. The humming sound they had heard in the underground chamber returned, this time much louder, echoing through the walls of the entire tower. "Captain," Rel said sharply, his weapon raised as he watched the hallway outside the control room. "Something's happening." Case turned toward the door, just as the lights in the hallway flickered once, twice, and then steadily brightened, illuminating the dusty corridor with a soft white glow that hadn't shone in centuries. "The lights," Toma whispered, staring in disbelief. "The lights are turning on." Case felt his hearts, both of them, as was normal for a Threll, begin to beat faster. Around them, the tower groaned softly, as old systems, long dormant, began to stir back to life. Somewhere far below, deep in the underground chamber, the Guardian Core pulsed steadily brighter, sending its signal spreading outward through the sleeping city, like blood rushing back into a limb that had fallen asleep. "Everyone, back to the ship," Case ordered, his voice sharp and urgent. "Now." They moved quickly through the hallway, but as they reached the stairwell, more lights flickered on ahead of them, illuminating a path they hadn't chosen to take. Doors that had been sealed shut for centuries now hissed softly and slid open on their own, revealing rooms and hallways that had been hidden just moments before. "This isn't just power returning," Dessa said, hurrying to keep pace with the others. "This is a system waking up. On purpose." They reached the ground floor and rushed toward the main doors, the ones Bram had forced open earlier. Outside, in the plaza, more of the city had come alive. Streetlights glowed steadily along the roads. Windows in nearby buildings lit up one by one. The fountain in the center of the plaza, dry and cracked just hours before, now hummed softly as old pipes cleared themselves, sending a thin stream of water bubbling up from somewhere deep below. Toma stared at the scene in wonder and fear. "It's not dead," he said. "This whole time, it wasn't dead." Case looked around at the glowing city, feeling the weight of a discovery far bigger than he had ever imagined. This wasn't a simple ruin to scavenge for parts. This was something else entirely. A city that had been sleeping, waiting, watching, and now, because of their presence, it was waking up. "Get to the ship," Case said again, quieter this time, his eyes fixed on the tower behind them, where more lights continued to flicker on, floor by floor, reaching higher and higher into the darkening sky. "We need to figure out what we just woke up." Behind them, deep within the tower, a soft mechanical voice echoed faintly through unseen speakers, speaking words none of them could yet understand, but which carried a clear and steady tone, not one of fear or panic, but of quiet, patient purpose. like something that had been waiting a very long time for exactly this moment to arrive. The crew of the Hollow Drift ran through the glowing streets, their boots kicking up dust that had not been disturbed in centuries. Around them, the city continued to wake, block by block, light by light, like a giant slowly opening its eyes after a very long sleep. "There," Case shouted, pointing toward the ship, still parked where they left it, at the edge of the plaza. "Almost there." They reached the ship and scrambled up the ramp into the airlock. Bram was the last one in, glancing back one more time at the tower behind them, now fully lit from top to bottom, glowing like a beacon against the darkening sky. "Seal it up," Case ordered, once they were all inside. The airlock closed with a hiss, and the crew hurried to the cockpit, dropping into their seats. Case's hands moved quickly over the controls, preparing the ship for takeoff, though he hesitated before actually lifting off. "Wait," he said. "Dessa, are we in danger? Is anything targeting us?" Dessa checked her scanners, her fingers moving fast. No weapon signatures, no active threats detected, just power. Lots of power, spreading through the whole city. "Then hold the launch," Case said, surprising the rest of the crew. "Captain?" Rel asked, clearly confused. "If this thing wanted to hurt us, it could have done it already, back in that control room," Case said, though his voice wasn't entirely steady. "It hasn't attacked, it's just turning on. I want to understand what we're dealing with before we run." Toma, still catching his breath, looked out the small window beside his seat. The city outside had transformed completely in the past few minutes. What had been a dark, silent ruin was now a glowing web of light, streets illuminated, windows shining, and here and there, the soft blue glow of machinery working somewhere out of sight. "Captain," Dessa said suddenly, her voice tight. "I'm picking up a transmission." "From where?" "Everywhere. It's being broadcast across the whole city, on every frequency." "Put it through," Case said. Dessa tapped her console, and a moment later, a calm, steady voice filled the cockpit. It spoke in a language none of them understood at first, but Dessa's translation device worked quickly, converting the words into something they could follow. "Unauthorized visitors detected within city limits," the voice said. It sounded neither angry nor threatening, simply factual, like someone reading a report. "Awakening protocol initiated. All systems returning to standard operation. Please remain calm. You are not currently considered a threat." The crew exchanged uncertain glances. "Not currently considered a threat," Toma repeated. "That's not exactly comforting." "It's talking to us," Bram said, amazed. "Directly to us." Case leaned forward slightly. "Can we respond?" Dessa checked her console. "I think so. I'll try to translate our words as we send them." Case took a slow breath, unsure exactly what to say to a machine that had apparently been waiting, asleep, for who knew how long. Finally, he spoke. "This is Captain Case Vorn, of the scavenger vessel Hollow Drift. We did not know this place was active. We meant no harm." There was a pause, only a few seconds long, but it felt much longer to the crew waiting anxiously in the cockpit. "Understood," the voice replied. "Scavenger vessel confirmed. This city has been designated Argus Prime, capital of the former Terran Union. I am the custodian, artificial guardian intelligence responsible for maintaining this location during the absence of its citizens." "Its citizens," Caius repeated. "The humans. Where did they go?" Another pause. "That information is restricted to authorized personnel only." "We're not trying to steal anything important," Case said carefully, though this was only partly true. "We're simple scavengers. We look for old technology to sell. We didn't expect to find anything, still active here." "Your intentions are noted," the custodian replied. "However, awakening protocols cannot be reversed once initiated. The city will remain in active status going forward." "What does that mean for us?" Caius asked. "It means," the voice said, "that you are welcome to leave at any time. The city poses no danger to peaceful visitors. However, further exploration of restricted areas will require proper authorization, which you do not currently possess." Case glanced at his crew, then back toward the window, watching the glowing city outside. Despite the strange and slightly unsettling situation, curiosity burned inside him stronger than ever. A whole city, alive and aware, guarding the secrets of a species most of the galaxy believed extinct or vanished. This was no longer just a job. This was history unfolding in front of them. Custodian, Caius said slowly. What happens now, if we choose to stay? If you remain, you will be treated according to standard visitor protocols, the voice replied. You may explore approved sections of the city. Restricted areas remain off limits. Any attempt to access restricted systems, weapons storage, or archives without authorization will result in immediate response. Response? Rel asked sharply. What kind of response? Security measures appropriate to the threat level presented, the custodian answered simply. The cockpit fell silent for a moment as the crew absorbed this information. It's basically saying, don't touch the dangerous stuff, or it'll deal with us, Bram said quietly. Sounds fair, actually, Thomas said, surprising himself with how calm his voice came out. Case rubbed his forehead, thinking quickly. On one hand, staying in a city controlled by an unknown, powerful artificial intelligence carried obvious risks. On the other hand, the story here was enormous, bigger than any scavenger tale he had ever heard. If they left now, they would leave with almost nothing, and someone else would eventually come and learn everything they were about to walk away from. We're staying, Case decided. For now, we'll explore carefully, stick to what's allowed, and learn as much as we can. Captain, are you sure that's wise? Rel asked. No, Case admitted, but I don't think we have a better option. This place isn't hostile, not yet anyway. Let's not give it a reason to become hostile. He turned back toward the console. Custodian, we accept your terms. We'd like permission to continue exploring approved sections of the city. Permission granted, the voice replied almost immediately. A designated escort will meet you outside your vessel. Escort? Dessa asked, alarmed. What kind of escort? Before anyone could ask further questions, a soft mechanical whirring sound came from outside the ship. The crew rushed to the windows and watched as a small machine emerged from a nearby building, moving smoothly on four thin legs. It was roughly the size of a large dog, with a rounded metallic body and a single glowing light where its head would be. It stopped a short distance from the ship and waited patiently. That's actually kind of cute, Thomas said, breaking the tension slightly. Don't let its size fool you, Dessa said, scanning the small machine carefully. This thing is packed with sensors and processing power. It's definitely not just decoration. Case took a deep breath. All right, let's meet our escort. They exited the ship cautiously, weapons holstered but ready, and approached the small robot waiting outside. As they got closer, the glowing light on its head shifted, almost like an eye focusing on them. Greetings, the robot said, its voice similar to the one from the transmission, though slightly higher in pitch. I am Unit 7, assigned as your escort during your visit to Argus Prime. Please follow me. I will guide you through approved areas and answer basic questions where possible. Basic questions, Case repeated. Can you tell us what happened to the humans, where they went? That information falls outside approved disclosure parameters, Unit 7 replied simply. Of course it does, Bram muttered. Unit 7 turned and began walking down the street, its four legs moving smoothly and quietly across the pavement. The crew followed, glancing around at the fully awakened city surrounding them. Streetlights glowed steadily overhead. In the distance, other small robotic units moved between buildings, performing various tasks, clearing debris, repairing minor damage, watering plants that had somehow survived the centuries. It's like watching a city come back to life in fast motion, Thomas said, amazed. As they walked, Dessa continued scanning everything around them, gathering as much data as she could. Captain, she said quietly, keeping her voice low enough that Unit 7 hopefully wouldn't overhear, though given the technology surrounding them, she doubted anything was truly private. This level of technology, maintained perfectly for centuries, completely autonomous, capable of managing an entire city on its own. This is far beyond anything the rest of the galaxy has developed. If humans built this, just to guard an empty city while they were away, what kind of technology did they take with them? Case had been thinking the exact same thing. If this was simply what the humans left behind, unused and dormant, the technology they carried with them, wherever they had gone, must have been even more advanced. It raised uncomfortable questions about a species most of the galaxy had written off as extinct, or at best, insignificant. They continued following Unit 7, through several blocks of the city, passing buildings that ranged from simple homes to large structures that might have once served as markets or gathering places. Everywhere they looked, the city showed signs of careful maintenance, as if it had never truly been abandoned at all, just paused, waiting patiently for someone to press play again. Eventually, Unit 7 led them to a large building near the plaza, its entrance marked with more of the strange human symbols. "This is the public archive," Unit 7 explained. "You may review general historical records here. Restricted archives remain inaccessible." The doors slid open smoothly, revealing a large room filled with softly glowing screens and shelves lined with strange devices that looked like books, though clearly more advanced. Case stepped inside slowly, feeling the weight of the moment settle over him. Whatever the truth about humanity turned out to be, he suspected it was about to change everything he thought he knew. "Let's get to work," he said quietly to his crew. "We came here looking for scrap metal and old tech to sell. I think we found something far more valuable instead." Behind them, the doors slid shut, sealing them inside the archive with centuries of hidden human history, while outside, the city of Argus Prime continued to hum quietly with life, its countless lights shining steadily into the growing darkness of the evening, like a promise finally being kept after a very long wait. Inside the archive, the crew of the Hollow Drift split up to search through the records, guided occasionally by Unit 7, who stood quietly near the entrance, watching them with its single glowing light. Dessa moved from screen to screen, activating each one carefully, watching as old images and text appeared, slowly translated by her device. Most of what she found were simple records, weather reports, city maintenance logs, population counts from long ago. But slowly, buried among the ordinary documents, she began to find pieces of something bigger. "Captain," she called after a while, "I think I'm starting to understand what happened here." Case walked over, and the rest of the crew gathered around the screen she was working on. This city, Argus Prime, was the capital of something called the Terran Union, Dessa explained. "From what I can tell, humans didn't just live on one world. They had spread across many planets, many systems, over a long period of time. That matches some of the old trade rumors," Bram said. "Different crews finding human ruins on different worlds, far apart from each other." "Right," Dessa said. "And according to these records, roughly 300 years ago, something happened. Some kind of major event. The records call it the Departure. All human worlds were evacuated in a coordinated effort, moving the entire population somewhere else." "Somewhere else where?" Toma asked. Dessa shook her head. "That part is restricted. I can't access it. But there are hints. Mentions of a sanctuary project. Something about preparing for a threat." "A threat," Case repeated. What kind of threat could force an entire species to abandon every world they had built? Dessa searched through more records, her fingers moving quickly. "I found a partial statement, from what looks like a recorded speech given right before the evacuation began." She activated the recording, and after a moment of static, a voice began to play. Not the calm, mechanical tone of the custodian, but a different voice entirely. Deeper, rougher, clearly emotional despite the crackling old recording. "We built this world with our hands, and we are not leaving because we are weak. We are leaving because we choose to survive, so that one day we can return stronger than before. This city, and every city like it, will wait for us. Guarded, protected, ready. We are not gone. We are simply patient." The recording ended, leaving the room silent except for the faint hum of the archive systems. "They knew they were leaving on purpose," Caius said slowly. "This wasn't a disaster. It wasn't a plague, like the old stories say. It was a decision. A decision to run," Rel said. "Or a decision to survive," Dessa corrected. "There's a difference." Toma had been quiet for a while, standing near a shelf lined with old objects rather than screens. He picked up a small device, similar in shape to others they had seen, and activated it carefully. A soft blue light flickered on, and a simple image appeared. A family, standing together in front of what looked like this very city, smiling at whoever was taking the picture. "Captain," Toma said quietly, "I don't think these people were monsters." Caius walked over and looked at the image for a long moment. It reminded him uncomfortably of pictures he had seen of his own family, back home, before he had left to become a scavenger. The stories always made humans sound dangerous, Caius said. Violent, unpredictable. Maybe they were, Dessa said. Maybe they still are, wherever they went. But this, she gestured around the archive, at the careful records, the maintained city, the Guardian intelligence, still faithfully doing its job after centuries. This doesn't look like the work of mindless savages. This looks like the work of a species that planned carefully and left everything ready for their return. A soft chime interrupted their conversation, and Unit 7's light flickered briefly. Attention, the small robot said. Additional visitors have entered restricted airspace above Argus Prime. The crew turned quickly toward the robot. What visitors? Case demanded. Unidentified vessel. Non-human origin. Currently approaching the city, Unit 7 replied. The custodian is evaluating the situation. Caius felt his stomach tighten. Another ship meant competition, or worse, trouble. Can we see what's happening? Unit 7 tilted slightly, and one of the nearby screens flickered, switching from historical records to a live view of the sky above the city. A ship, larger and more heavily armed than the hollow drift, was descending toward the outskirts of Argus Prime. That's a krill ship, Rel said, recognizing the design immediately. Pirates, or worse. The krill were a species known throughout the galaxy for their aggressive, opportunistic behavior. They rarely cared about laws or treaties, preferring instead to take whatever they could by force, especially from vulnerable targets like scavenger crews, who had already done the hard work of finding valuable sites. They must have picked up our signal when we first landed, Bram said. Or maybe they were already tracking rumors about an active human world. Either way, Case said, this just got a lot more complicated. The screen showed the krill ship landing on the far side of the city, near one of the outer districts. Armed figures began emerging from the ship, moving with the confident, aggressive posture typical of krill raiding parties. Custodian, Case said quickly, hoping the artificial intelligence was still listening. Those newcomers are dangerous. They won't respect any rules you've set for visitors. The calm voice of the custodian responded immediately, seeming to come from everywhere in the room at once. Threat assessment confirmed. Krill vessel, identified as hostile, based on historical behavioral data. Security response initiated. What kind of response? Toma asked nervously. Before anyone could answer, the view on the screen shifted, showing the outer district where the krill had landed. As the armed raiders began moving toward nearby buildings, the streetlights around them suddenly flared brighter, and thin panels along the walls slid open, revealing hidden defense systems that had been completely invisible just moments before. The krill raiders froze, clearly startled by the sudden activity. But before they could retreat, mechanical arms extended from the openings, releasing some kind of energy field that surrounded the group entirely, trapping them in place without causing visible harm. It's not killing them, Dessa said, watching closely. Non-lethal containment protocol engaged, the custodian confirmed. Hostile parties will be held until proper authorities can be contacted, or until threat level increases sufficiently to warrant additional force. The crew watched in stunned silence, as the trapped krill struggled uselessly against the energy field, their weapons useless against a defense system designed by a species far more advanced than they had ever imagined. That's incredible, Bram said, awe clear in his voice. A defense system that can respond that precisely, after centuries of no maintenance, with barely any warning. It's not just incredible, Case said slowly, watching the screen. It's terrifying. If humans built systems like this, just to protect an empty city, imagine what they built for themselves, wherever they went. The custodian's voice returned, calm as ever. The hostile threat has been neutralized without loss of life. Normal city operations will continue. Scavenger vessel Hollow Drift and crew remain classified as non-hostile visitors, provided current behavior continues. Kays let out a slow breath, relief mixing with a growing unease. Custodian, thank you. But I have to ask, if you can do that to a fully armed raiding party, why haven't you done anything to us? Your behavior has remained within acceptable parameters, the custodian replied simply. You have not attempted to access restricted systems, weapons storage, or sensitive archives. You have, in fact, shown considerable respect toward the history and records you have been permitted to view. This behavior has been noted favorably. Noted favorably by who? Rel asked. You're the only one here. There was a brief pause before the custodian answered. That is correct, for the moment. However, all activity within Argus Prime is recorded, and will be reviewed upon the return of proper authority. The return, Kays repeated. You keep saying that. Return of what? Return of who? Another pause, longer this time. That information remains restricted, the custodian said finally. However, given recent events, I have been authorized to share the following. The evacuation of human worlds was never intended to be permanent. Preparations for eventual return have been ongoing since the departure began. Recent developments suggest that timeline may be accelerating. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Accelerating, Dessa said slowly. You mean they're coming back? Soon. I am not authorized to provide a specific timeline, the custodian replied. However, I recommend all visitors to Argus Prime, and any other human world, conduct themselves accordingly, in anticipation of that possibility. Case looked around at his crew. Dessa, still processing the historical records with wide eyes. Bram, staring at the screen where the trapped Krill raiders continued struggling uselessly. Rel, tense and alert, clearly recalculating every risk in his mind. And Toma, still holding the small holographic device showing the smiling human family, looking more thoughtful than scared. Whatever they had stumbled into, it was far bigger than a simple scavenging job. They had discovered proof that humanity was not extinct, not gone, not defeated. They were simply waiting, preparing, somewhere out among the stars, for the right moment to come home. And judging by everything Case had seen so far, the perfectly maintained city, the calm but powerful Guardian intelligence, the effortless defeat of a dangerous raiding party, when humanity finally did return, the galaxy would need to be ready for them. Custodian, Case said finally, choosing his next words carefully. What happens to us now? That depends, the custodian replied, on what you choose to do next. Outside, the trapped Krill raiders continued to struggle against their glowing containment field, while high above the city, the sky remained calm and quiet, giving no hint yet of just how soon that promised return might actually arrive. Case stood in the archive for a long moment, thinking about the custodian's question. What happens to us now depends on what you choose to do next. It felt less like a threat and more like an honest offer, though he still wasn't entirely sure what to make of a machine that could speak so calmly about trapping armed pirates one moment and discussing history the next. Custodian, Case said finally, we came here as scavengers, looking for old technology to sell. I won't pretend otherwise, but I don't think that's what we're leaving with anymore. Explain, the custodian said. Case glanced at his crew before continuing. This city isn't just scrap metal and old ruins, it's a message, a promise, from a species everyone assumed was gone. If we take that message back with us, back to the wider galaxy, it changes things. People need to know humans are still out there, still planning, still watching. That is one possible outcome, the custodian said. There are others. Like what? Dessa asked. Some visitors, upon learning what you have learned, choose instead to keep the information for themselves, hoping to gain advantage over others, by knowing something they do not. That's not us, Toma said quickly, surprising himself with how certain he sounded. No, Case agreed. That's not us. The custodian was quiet for a moment, as if considering this. Your honesty is noted. I will provide additional information, given your demonstrated respect for this location and its history. The main screen in the archive shifted again, this time showing a simple star map, with several points marked in soft blue light, scattered across a wide section of the galaxy. These are the locations of other Terran worlds, similar to Argus Prime, each maintained by their own custodian systems, the voice explained. All have remained dormant until recently, in accordance with the original evacuation plan. However, over the past several years, activation events like the one you triggered here have become more frequent. More frequent because more scavengers are finding these places? Bram asked. Partially, the custodian said. But also because the original departure timeline is reaching its planned conclusion. Preparations undertaken during the absence of humanity's population are nearing completion. So they really are coming back, Rel said, his voice quieter than usual. Yes, the custodian confirmed simply. Soon. The crew stood in silence, absorbing the weight of what they had just learned. Case thought about the stories he had grown up hearing. Stories that painted humans as reckless, dangerous, and unpredictable. He wondered now how much of that reputation had been earned, and how much had simply grown from fear of the unknown. Fear of a species that had disappeared so suddenly and so completely, leaving nothing behind except empty cities and unanswered questions. Now, it seemed, some of those questions were finally being answered, not with destruction, not with violence, but with patient preparation, careful planning, and quiet, watchful guardianship. "Custodian," Case said, "when they do come back, what happens to worlds like this one? What happens to visitors, like us, who happen to be here first?" "That will depend on the judgment of returning authorities," the custodian replied. "However, based on recorded behavior during your visit, I have already compiled a favorable report regarding your conduct. This report will be included in the historical record, available for review upon humanity's return." "A favorable report," Toma repeated, sounding almost proud, despite the strangeness of the situation. Case allowed himself a small, tired smile. Whatever happened next, whatever the wider galaxy would eventually learn about the return of humanity, his small scavenger crew had somehow ended up on the right side of history, simply by choosing curiosity over greed, respect over destruction. "What about the krill?" Dessa asked, glancing at the screen still showing the trapped raiders outside. "They will remain contained until proper authorities arrive to process them accordingly," the custodian said. "Their behavior has already been recorded as hostile. Consequences will follow, in accordance with standard protocol." "And us?" Case asked. "Are we free to leave?" "You have always been free to leave," the custodian said, something in its tone almost sounding amused, despite being a machine. "You chose to stay. That choice has proven valuable, both for yourselves and for the historical record." Case nodded slowly, feeling a strange mixture of relief and awe. "Then I think it's time we did leave. We have a lot to think about, and probably a lot to tell people, if anyone will believe us." "A wise decision," the custodian said. "I would recommend spreading this information carefully. Not everyone in the galaxy will react calmly to news of humanity's eventual return." "No," Case agreed, thinking of species like the krill, who thrived on chaos and conflict, and who would likely see the return of a powerful, technologically advanced species as either a threat to eliminate or an opportunity to exploit. "I imagine not." The crew gathered their equipment and made their way back through the archive, out into the plaza, where the fountain continued to bubble softly, and the streetlights glowed steadily overhead, illuminating a city that, for centuries, had simply been waiting for someone, anyone, to notice it was never truly empty at all. As they walked toward their ship, Unit 7 followed a short distance behind, its single light, steady and calm. "Before you leave," the small robot said, "the custodian has authorized a final gift, in recognition of your conduct during this visit." A small panel on a nearby building slid open, and a compact device floated out, drifting gently toward Case. He caught it carefully, examining the smooth metal surface, covered in the same strange human symbols they had seen throughout the city. "What is this?" Case asked. "A data archive," Unit 7 explained, "containing a portion of the historical records you were permitted to view, along with additional context regarding the departure and the eventual return. This is not the complete record, but it is enough to help you explain what you have witnessed here, should you choose to share it with others." Caius held the small device carefully, feeling its unexpected weight in his hand, not physical weight, but the weight of responsibility that came with carrying such important information. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "You are welcome," Unit 7 replied. "Safe travels, Captain Case Vorn, and crew of the Hollow Drift. Perhaps, one day, you will return to Argus Prime and find its true citizens waiting to greet you personally." The crew boarded their ship, and Case took one last look at the glowing city, before sealing the airlock behind him. Somehow, despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the strange encounter with an ancient guardian intelligence, he felt oddly hopeful about what he had witnessed. The ship lifted off slowly, rising above the city, giving the crew a full view of Argus Prime, spread out beneath them, glowing brightly against the darkened landscape, alive once more after centuries of patient waiting. As they climbed higher into the sky, leaving the atmosphere behind. Toma spoke up from his seat, still holding the small toy he had found earlier, tucked safely in his pocket. "Captain," he said, "do you think they'll really come back? The humans, I mean?" Case thought about the recording they had heard, the deep, determined voice promising a future return, the perfectly maintained city, the calm but powerful defense systems, and the quiet confidence of the custodian throughout their entire visit. "Yes," Case said finally, watching the planet shrink behind them on the screen. "I think they will." "What do you think they'll be like?" Toma asked. "When they come back?" Caius considered the question carefully, remembering the family photo, the children's drawings, the careful history preserved so faithfully across centuries. He thought about the trapped Krill raiders, defeated without a single life lost, and the favorable report already recorded about his own small crew's honest, respectful behavior. "I think," Case said slowly, "that the galaxy is in for a very big surprise." The hollow drift continued its climb into the stars, carrying with it not just old scavenged technology, but something far more valuable, proof that humanity had never truly disappeared, only waited, patiently and quietly, preparing for the day they would finally come home. And somewhere far below, in the heart of Argus Prime, the custodian continued its careful watch, lights glowing steadily through the night, keeping its long, faithful promise, exactly as it had for centuries, exactly as it would continue to do until the day humanity finally returned to claim what had always belonged to them. The city, once thought abandoned, was never truly empty at all. It had simply been waiting, patient and quiet, for the right moment to wake up. And now, at last, that moment had finally come.